Haribol.
Yeah.
Can we start, Jaguntu?
Yeah, just I'll give the brief introduction, then you can take over.
Okay.
Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the Bhakti Vaibhava, Module 1, Unit 7. So, in this section, you are going to cover from the second canto, chapter 6 to 10. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a nectar, that's the reason the third verse says, Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam shukamukhada amrita drava samyitam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuribavukaha. You know, the rasikas, will relish this nectar, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So literally each and every verse is a nectar as far as Srimad Bhagavatam is concerned. The last unit, His Holiness Bhakti Vigna Vinashaka Narasimha Swami Maharaj, he is wonderfully covered. Now the first 5 chapters, starting from the first step in God realization to the last chapter, which is the cause of all causes. Now this section is also a very wonderful section. It starts with the Purusha Sukta confirmed. And we have to teach this unit, we have with us His Grace Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu. Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu, uh, he has completed his masters and from IIT Kharagpur, and after his studies, Prabhu decided to dedicate his life to the Srila Prabhupada and his mission. So Prabhu joined ISKCON Calcutta in 2009, and ever since he is serving ISKCON in various capacities. He compiled books for congregational preaching, that is Bhakti Vriksha. He served as a Sankirtan in charge, Brahmachari trainer, and caretaker and youth preacher in IIT Kharagpur, then National Institute of Jamshedpur, and Birla Institute of Technology, Ranchi, and he did his Bhakti Shastri, teachers training courses, and leadership and management courses from Mayapur Institute. He has also done Bhakti Vaibhava course from Bhaktivedanta Vidyapita, and he has been teaching Bhakti Shastri and ISKCON disciple courses to brahmacharis and congregations of ISKCON Calcutta and Mayapur Institute since last 3 years. Currently, Prabhu is serving as a trainer for new brahmacharis in ISKCON Calcutta and guiding many youths. And we also had we are also fortunate, me and Radha Madhav. Prabhu is also doing Bhakti Vedanta, so we are part of that course, and we had Prabhu's association during the classes. So we are fortunate to hear from Prabhu. So we welcome Anand Gaur Sundar Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Over to you.
So Jaguntu is our Siksha Guru. So with his permission and guidance, we'll start with second canto, chapter number 6. Again. So Jaguntu, please bless me. I can speak something on Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna. So one minute, Prabhu. A humble request to devotees, just show your faces so that Prabhu can see you all at least for some time. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
We'll start with the prayers. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Sadakya Chaksurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shriuta Padagamaram Shri Guru Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Tam Sajivam Sadhutam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakamritam Sa Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pesha Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Distarne Swancha Kalpadruvasha Kapa Sindhu Bevcha Patitanam Pavane Bhuvashne Namo Nama Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prem Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gautase Nama हे कृष्ण कर्मा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोप्स गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्ते तत्कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वसुधाम सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिय नीलाचल निवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्याम जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम संसारे नाम So we'll start with Cantos 2 and chapter 6. So this is very technical section. This will be chapter number 6. So we'd request devotees to be very attentive, because if you're distracted, it will be difficult to understand. And as usual, whenever devotees have questions, they can raise their hands and ask in between. Because speech chapter number 6 is a bit tough, being truthful. So we'll start with chapter number 6 now. So what I'll do is, I'll also share with, sometimes I'll share with PPT and sometimes through vedabase.io. So this Canto 2 and also chapter number 6, as we know, it's called Purusha Sukta confirmed. Because many statements of species chapter number 5 and chapter number 6, they are parallel with Purusha Sukta prayers. And those devotees who are South Indians, so I'm a North Indian, but I know that in many of the South Indian temples, so while especially doing the Abhishek of the Lord, they sing this Purusha Sukta prayers. And Sevites in general say these Purusha Sukta prayers are meant for Lord Shiva. Whereas those of Vaishnavas, they say, no, it is meant for worshipping Lord Vishnu. But this chapter is a proof that actually Purusha Sukta prayers are meant for Lord Vishnu. They are not meant for Lord Shiva. And that's why Prabhupada has boldly proclaimed this particular chapter as Purusha Sukta confirmed. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he has shown the parallels between Purusha Sukta prayers and the verses of Bhagavata. So towards the end of our session today, we will see the parallels also. But before that, we'll begin with our chapter. So I'll just give some background and then we'll go to the verses. So as we were discussing in creation, that from the body of Lord Mahavishnu, from each pore one universe emanates, especially when Mahavishnu breathes out from the Karan ocean. So that is how each of these universes is made up of the Karan ocean. That's basically the conglomerate of 24 elements. So already you must have read out how each of these 24 elements come from Pradhan, which is unmanifest, and then it becomes manifest as Mahatattva. And from Mahatattva, all these 24 elements come out. Then from the navel of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Brahma comes out. And from Mahavishnu, the entire universe comes out, which is literally called Virat Rupa. So what is Virat Rupa? Actually, Virat Rupa is literally universe itself. That's Virat Rupa. It's a subtle conception of universe. And if we don't understand the purpose behind these verses become too much technical and overhead. So the purpose of all the verses, is to show that it's Lord Vishnu who's behind everything. As we'll go through the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam day after tomorrow. Rityartam yat pritiyeta na pritiyachatmani tad vidyad atmano mayam yatha vasudeva. So Rityartam yat pritiyeta. My dear Brahma, if anything seems to be valuable, but na pritiyeta cha atmani, but you don't see its relationship with me, tad vidyad atmano mayam. Understand that's Maya. That means each and everything has a relationship with the Supreme Lord. And that the purpose of this, all these technical verses, two technical verses in chapter number 6. So that as soon as we see anything in creation, we can see that how Lord is behind this creation. So on various levels, these are two technical terms. So I'll try to first explain these technical terms so that we can understand these verses. So as we know, Krishna is called Sarva Karan Karana because even Mahavishnu comes from Krishna only. Somebody knows the hierarchy, somebody can share the hierarchy, how Mahavishnu comes from Krishna. Somebody has some idea of the expansion?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, may I try?
Yes, please.
Please accept my humble obeisances. So from Krishna comes Lord Balram, who's the first expansion. Then from him comes the first Chaturvyu, comprising of Vasudev, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. And from Sankarshana comes Narayan, and from Narayan comes the second Chaturvyu. Same, Vasudev, Sankarshana, Anirudh, and Pradyumna. And then from Sankarshana, of the second Chaturvyu, comes Lord Mahavishnu.
Yes, perfect. So second, one is called, first one is called Mool Sankar, second is called Mahasankar. Yes, so very nice. So that is how Mahavishnu comes out. Now this Mahavishnu is considered two causes of the universe. One is called Nimitta Karan, another is called Upadhan Karan. So Nimitta Karan is called efficient cause and Upadhan Karan is called the ingredient cause. So somebody has, again, I won't say idea, but somebody knows how Mahavishnu is the efficient cause of the universe. How Mahavishnu is the efficient cause. What's the meaning of efficient cause? Okay. So efficient cause means it's because of the glance of Mahavishnu that the creation proceeds further. So that's called efficient cause. And that glance is many times called Lord Shiva. And there's many times Shivites say, no, it's Lord Shiva who is the efficient cause. Actually, it is Mahavishnu's glance. So it's called the efficient cause. Or I'll give one another example to help us understand what is Upadhan Karan and Nimitta Karan. Nimitta Karan is called efficient. Upadhan Karan is called material cause. So when a potter makes a pot, then the ingredient of pot. What is the ingredient of the pot? Somebody can tell. What is the ingredient of the pot?
Earth and water, Prabhu.
Yeah, earth or clay. So earth or clay is called the ingredient cause or the material cause. And the potter who makes the clay, because clay cannot turn into pot by itself. So potter is required who uses the wheel and uses a stick initially and then shapes it. So he is called the efficient cause. So Mahavishnu is called the efficient cause of the entire creation. And somebody knows who is called the Upadhan Karan?
Lord Brahma.
Okay.
Prakriti?
Yes, Prakriti is called the Upadhan Karan. But the one who gives potency to the Prakriti to get a shape, that particular personality, somebody knows who that particular personality?
Prabhuji, is it Advaita?
Yes, it's Advaita. Thank you. They're very tough questions. So I'm very happy. Vandana Mataji. Thank you. So it's Advaita. So Advaita is the one who energizes the matter to take the form of to take a particular state. It's Advaita Acharya. So that's why he's called the prime limb of Mahavishnu. So similarly, within the universe, so this was for the entire creation. Now for the within the universe, it's again Garbhodaksha Vishnu who is the Nimitta Karan, the efficient cause. But he is also the Upadan Karan, material cause. That is what we learn in this chapter number 6. So, because all the devotees, I'm very happy to see this batch. Now I can very confidently move forward in technicalities. So that is how this Garbhodaksha Vishnu, how is the material cause also of the universe, we'll learn in this particular chapter. So in this way, Garbhodaksha Vishnu's limbs, which are spiritual, they provide even the ingredients of the universe. So that is what we learn in this particular chapter. And the manifestation of this ingredient of the universe is the entire creation, which is called Virat Rupa, which is literally the universe itself, or the subtle conception of the universe. So these are two formulas which we'll apply in the verses from chapter verse number 1 to verse number 17. So initially I'll give some examples, then I'll expect devotees to fill the tables. I'll share some of the tables or I'll fill in front of you. So let us see whether devotees are able to answer or not. So we'll do some exercise and then we'll just move forward. So Lord means here Garbhodaksha Vishnu. From Garbhodaksha Vishnu's subtle sense organs. So there are two types of sense organs. The one which is made up of Panch Mahabhuta and the gross bodies, they are called gross sense organs. The sense organs which are in the subtle body are called subtle sense organs. So from Garbhodaksha Vishnu subtle sense organs, that means he also has a gross and subtle body, but they are made up of Satchidananda. That's why they are called spiritual in nature. And each one of us, we do have a spiritual body. The elements of this material world are just the reflection or the counterparts of the original spiritual organs, sense organs. Currently, in the conditioned state for living entities, they are sleeping. As soon as one comes to the level of Bhava and Prem, they again become enlivened. Like Dhruv Maharaj speaks in chapter number Canto 4, we'll learn later on. Yo anta pravisya mama vacha mimam prasoptam sanjivati akhila sakti dhara sadhamna anyam sahastra charana sramana tvakadin pranam namo bhagavate purusaya tobhyam. So he says, Yanta pravisya mama vacha mimam prasoptam. My dear Lord, as soon as you have entered in my heart, prasoptam. Prasuptam is suptam, it comes from the suptam and very deeply sleeping. Prasuptam is very deeply sleeping. All my spiritual senses were very deeply sleeping. But Sanjivati, Sanjivati means like Sanjivani Bhuti has a power to enliven or make a dead one alive. All these dead senses have become alive. Akhil Sakti Dharada Somna, they have become energized. Annams the Hasta Charana. Hasta means hand and Charana means legs. So these are two working senses. And Tvak, Sravan and Tvak. Sravan means ears, Tvak means skin. These are two Gyanendriyas. Previous or Karmendriya, they are Gyanendriyas. Tvak Adi, all these senses, they all have become enlivened by your touch because you have entered in my heart. Pranams Namo Bhagavate. Pranams means they have got now energy, they have got life. Namo Bhagavate Purusayatubho. So in this way, they become enlivened, they become alive. But for Lord, it is always alive. So these subtle sense organs of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, they lead to sense objects, tanmatras. So, like we know, all the tanmatras are there. And they also lead to 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And Lord's gross sense organs leads to sense devatas. It leads to subtle sense organs of Virat Rupa, means the entire universe, and individual jiva also. That means even for our gross and subtle bodies, we are dependent on Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So unless until he provides those materials, we can't enjoy the senses. That's why Garbhodaksha Vishnu's limbs, or Garbhodaksha Vishnu himself, is also material cause of the universe, apart from being efficient cause. That's the actual meaning of Sarva Karan Karana. So this is the formula. If devotees, anyway, it is there in Bhagavad Subodhi, those who want to learn, but it is actually given by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, these formulas. So that is how we'll go through these slokas. Now we know these are the senses, 10 senses are there. These are the sense devatas. For ear it is Dig Devatas, for eye Surya, skin Vayu, nose Ashwini Kumaras, tongue Varuna, hands Indra, feet Upendra, voice Agni, anus Mitra, genitals Prajapati. Now for anus it is sometimes Mrityu and sometimes Mitra, which we learn because of time. So Mitra is supposed to be the assistant of Mrityu. Mrityu means Yama. So these are devatas. Then these are the tanmatras: smell, taste, form, touch, sound, rasa, roop, gandha, shabd, sparsh. That's in Sanskrit. Then we have this 5 great elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, which you must have just learned in the previous chapter. How tanmatras ultimately lead to the elements. That is how it goes. So keeping this in mind, and also keeping understanding the subtle and gross sense organs. So actual sense organs are there in the subtle body. That's why we dream. In our dreams, we see, we hear, we touch, we do everything in the dream. So they are in the subtle body. And there are gross manifestations, like Akshini is the eyeballs. These eyeballs are Akshini. Whereas the actual eyes are there in the subtle body, which are called Chakshu. So soul sees through Chakshu and then through Akshini. And the sense devata for eyes is Surya. Tanmatra, about what we see, is form. It's called Roop in Sanskrit. And the element, metal element, is fire. So this is how all the 10 sense organs are there, gross and subtle. The sense devatas are there. Tanmatras are there for the first 5, the metal elements. And for the working senses, there are activities. So we'll see one by one how each one of them are ultimately dependent on Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Now we'll go to the verses and I'll show you some tables. So let us just stop here and let us go to vedabase.io. Just a minute. So what I'll do, I'll read the Sanskrit and then I'll request devotees to read the translation. Okay, before that, somebody had a question? Yes, Vandana Mata, you had a question.
Yes, Prabhuji, I just could not understand if you could just explain that. You said that the like our eyes, they see. You were explaining something gross and subtle that the eyes see, but Ashwini Kumaras. Can you please repeat that, Prabhuji?
Okay, okay. So, like you have spectacles in your eyes. So, do you see through eyes or you see through spectacles?
Both.
Yeah. So, similarly, we also have a eyes in our subtle body. So, we, the soul, sees through the subtle eyes, then through the gross eyeballs. And the one who sanctions the activity of seeing is called sense devata. So sense devata is Surya, sun god. But we first see through our subtle eyes and then through the gross eyes, which are eyeballs themselves. Is that clear?
Yes, Prabhuji, but like, how will the soul see?
Soul, see, soul in itself has senses,
Yeah.
but these senses are sleeping because we are in the material world. We don't have any access to the spiritual world. But how does it perceive the metal objects? It perceives the metal objects through two types of eyes. One is a part of subtle body, one is a part of gross body. So these are two types of eyes. So they're the gross eye and the subtle eye. The first soul sees through the first covering, that's the subtle eye. Then the second covering is the covering of the gross. Is that clear?
Yeah, Prabhuji, thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go to the verses. So what I'll do is I'll read the Sanskrit verses, and I would request devotees to read the Sanskrit ones. Sorry, the translations. Brahmo vacha vacham ve nirmukam kshetram छन्दसां सप्तधातवः हव् कव्यामितान्नानां जीवा सर्वरसस्य च. Somebody has, I think, unmuted the mic. Please mute it. Can you read the translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, please.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma said, the month of Virata Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. Is the skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people. Hare Krishna.
So now we'll go to the Sanskrit, and we'll see also how it fits in the formula. So we'll see one by one. So I just request the devotees to wait. Now I'll show you a table. Okay. So if we see in the verse, from the mukham of Garbhodaksha Vishnu comes two things. So it is written Agni in the, if you see the Sanskrit. And then comes Jivva, which is given Vacham there in the verse, in the Sanskrit verses. You just see the Sanskrit verse, you'll see it's written Vacham. So Vacham means the tongue, the subtle sense organ of Virat Rupa and Jiva. And the sense devata is Agni. How they come? They come from the mukham of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So from the mouth of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, which is literally the tongue of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, what comes? Agni comes, the sense devata for the tongue, who sanctions the sense of tasting. And Jiva. So they are speaking, not just tasting, they are speaking. And the Jiva, Vacham, the sense of speaking. So that is how, for that also, we are dependent on Garbhodaksha Vishnu. From his Garbhodaksha Vishnu, these elements come. Then in the same verse we see, it is written Talu. Talu, from Talu of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the sense object, sense Devata. Now Talu is the subtle sense organ of tasting. Comes Varuna, who is a Devata for tasting. That means if Varna doesn't sanction, one cannot identify the different type of taste. So you'll see some people very sharp in tasting. They can see whether the salt is good or bad. And some people just can't identify. For them, they are Brahman realized. Everything is same only. And then we also have Jiva. Now this Jiva is the tongue or the subtle organ for tasting. So tongue has two functions, speaking and tasting. So the organ of tasting comes again from the Talu of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Apart from that, in the same verse, Sanskrit of the same verse, 7 ingredients leads to the 7 elements within the body. Chandasam Sapta Dhatava. So from the 7 ingredients of the Saptami 7 of the body of the Lord, so skin, bone, bone marrow, semen, sile, etc. They are called the 7 elements which make up the body basically. So from them comes the 7 meters in the south. So 7 meters, the different meters of Gayatri. Gayatri mantra means the any mantras which end with Dhimahi is called the Gayatri mantras. So they come out. So that is how for all these things we are dependent on the Lord. That is given in the verse number 1. Now we'll go to the next verse and we'll see how for certain things we are also dependent on the Lord. So I'll just tell about few examples. Then I'll expect devotees to answer. Sarvasunam cha vayoscha tanna se paramayane asvinor osidhinam cha ghrano moda pramodayo. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Translation: His 2 nostrils are the generating center of our breathing and of all other airs. His smelling powers generate the Ashwini Kumara demigods and all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance. Hare Krishna.
Now it's difficult to show everything, but again I have to maybe stop this here and show the table again. So you see in this verse, maybe those of Bhagavatam can see just near to them. From Nasika, the subtle sense organ of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, comes 2 things. Sense Devata, they are Ashwini Kumaras, and Ghrana. Ghrana is basically the subtle sense organ of Virat Rupa, the universe, and all of individual Jiva. So that means we get the subtle sense organ of smelling because we get those ingredients from Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And then from Ghrana, the subtle sense organ of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, comes the Tanmatra of smell. Apart from the different type of fragrance it is given, different type of fragrances come. So that's basically smell. So that also comes from Garbhodaksha Vishnu only. So that's what is given in the verse number 2. Now I'll take for verse number 3. Okay, somebody has question or totally going overhead? I can explain again.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
I have. You said these come from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu.
Mhm.
These senses, originally we have it in our spiritual body.
Mhm.
And so when we come to the material world,
Mhm.
already our subtle senses are there. So then it should, only the gross senses given by Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, or also the subtle? Because we already have our subtle, or maybe I'm just confusing subtle with spiritual.
No. Yeah, you're confusing subtle with spiritual. We come with spiritual senses, but spiritual senses actually become dormant. They don't function at all. So we get both gross senses and subtle senses, both of them. Even when we are sleeping on the body of Mahavishnu at the time of dissolution, that time also we don't have either gross senses or the subtle senses, we just have spiritual senses. It's only when Mahavishnu glances and impregnates the Prakriti with Jivas, that time Jivas start getting the subtle senses and the gross senses. Is that clear? Mataji?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, as you said initially that the class and the lecture is going to be very technical, but we are very happy that you have done so much of homework on those Excel sheets, etc. So I was just wondering if you want to revise the lecture in our free time. So can we have these Excel sheet or how?
Okay, I'll make you fill the Excel sheet here only. It will become very easy for you. So that will give you some confidence. See, I'm not going to give all the examples.
Prabhu, I didn't wanted to fix myself here. I just wanted to free myself.
No. I'll make you. I'll help you to work.
So it seems I got fixed now. Anyway, we'll try.
Yeah. So you can try it. It's not so difficult also. Yeah. Kavirupa Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Mm-hmm.
Prabhuji, in the last Excel sheet, I'm just noting it down. Mentioned that Lord's gross and the subtle sense organ. So, like in the previous sheet, it was mentioned sense organ name is eyes, ears, and nose. I understand the difference between since we have the material, we have the two subtle and gross senses separately, whereas Lord will not have it. Prabhuji, is that my understanding is, or I'm not clear with that, Prabhuji?
Yeah. So our subtle and gross senses are made up of three modes of material nature. And Lord's gross and subtle elements are made up of Sat, Chit, Anand. In Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela chapter number 4, it is explained that the three modes of material nature are actually reflection of Sandhini, Samvit, Ladini, Shakti, which is basically Satchidananda. Satchidananda reflects in this world as three modes of material nature. So that is how Lord's also has gross subtle senses, but they are made up of Satchidananda. Our gross and subtle elements, gross and subtle senses are made up of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, ignorance. Okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Bhagavan Balaji.
Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat. Our ability to smell, is it, can you say it is subtle and the fragrance itself is gross? Is that the way we understand? Understand.
Bro, your voice is breaking. I don't know whether it's only for me.
Maybe.
It
Now you can hear? Maybe.
And now I can hear.
Yeah. Okay. Prabhu, our ability to smell, because we were discussing the smell right at the end. So the ability to smell is it the subtle sense, because of subtle sense, and the fragrance itself is gross sense. How do we understand the difference between, in the smell itself, one is
Okay.
gross and one is subtle?
Very simple example. Now, there are three stages. Basically, four are there: Jagriti, Swapna, Susupti and Turya. So Jagrati means wakeful state. So our current state is wakeful state in which both the gross and subtle senses are active. In the state when we are dreaming is called Swapna, where gross senses are sleeping and subtle senses are working. Then there is Susupti, in which when we go to deep sleep, then gross and subtle senses both don't work. And at the stage of Turya, one is there in the spiritual realm. That's beyond. Like Syaman Pandit getting the Nupur of Radharani. That is in different realm. He got it. That's called Turya. So now let us talk about subtle senses. Did you ever get a dream in which you smelled something very bad or something very good? I don't know whether you remember the dreams. Like we see in the dreams, similarly, we may also come across an atmosphere within the dream where we may have experience of either very unpleasant or pleasant smell. And like, no, now let us not go into those details, but there are certain scriptures which explain that if somebody comes in contact with stool in the dream, that's considered very auspicious. That means you are going to get a lot of money. So there is a Swapna Shastras also. So that means how do you identify the stool? Not just by the color, but also by the smell. So even with the dream, we do experience the good smell and the bad smell. So that's subtle. Although our gross nose is not working at that time. So does that clarify?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna. One more
Yes,
doubt.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Prabhu, the Susupti stage, when is it, Prabhu? Can you give an example? It's not like, is it like unconscious? But even then, I think subtle will be working, no?
No. It's called deep sleep. Like if you see in your MI bands, MI health bands. I'm not the promoter of MI health bands, but those who have this MI health bands or any sort of health bands, you'll find that within the sleep there would be some period when we have deep sleep. Deep sleep gives a lot of relaxation because even the subtle body doesn't work. The dreams don't come at that time. So that's called Susupti.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's come back because one thing is we have limited time. Subtle is very technical and interesting, but we have limited time. So we had gone to the verse number 2, now we'll go to the verse number 3. So this was verse number 3. Now we'll go to what I'll do. I'll just give one example from verse number 3, and I'll please expect devotees to fill the another one of verse number 3, another part. Rupanam tejasam chakshur deva suryasya chakshini karno disam cha tirthanam sotram akasa sabdayo. Please use the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivinoda Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The word Tirthanam is sometimes...
Mother, can you read the translation?
Yeah, Prabhu, sorry. His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and all receptacles are of all Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So now if you go to Sanskrit, Rupanam tejasam chakshur deva suryascha akshini. So these are two types of examples given here. Now we'll see them how they fill in the table. Let us. So those who have hard copies can be seen the hard copies. So from the chakshu, Cha akshu, chakshu. The word is given in the first line of that verse. It is given from the chakshu of the Lord comes rupanam, that means the form. That is the tanmatra. And tejasam. Tejasam is basically fire element. Fire is the gross sense, among the 5 gross elements. That means from the subtle sense organ of seeing of Garbhodaksha Vishnu comes 2 things. The gross sense object, Rupanam, and the gross element, Tejasa. These 2 things come out. Now from Akshini, the subtle, not the subtle, the gross one. The gross object, sense object of seeing, gross sense object of seeing, comes the sense devatas and Deva. Deva is basically the subtle sense organ of Virat Rupa and Jiva. Which is basically, it should be Chakshu. Chakshu is given as Deva here because there are multi names. So that is how all these things come from Virat Rupa only, from Garbhodaksha. Now, seeing the second line and seeing the formula. Let us go to the formula now. Okay. This is the formula. Or devotees can just note down the formula. In verse number 3, the second part, there's mention about hearing. So from Sutra 1, somebody can tell from which thing of Garbhodaksha Vishnu which all things are going to come, according to Sutra number 1. Gross and subtle organs also. Here, some you can just note it down. Or somebody can just take a snapshot. So the subtle sense organ is Ghrana. The gross is called Nasika. No, we are talking about ears. Shrotra and Karna. Dig Devatas are the sense Devatas. Tanmatra is the sound and the material element is ether. So somebody would like to just fill up things in terms of sound. So what I'll do, I'll stop this full screen share. I'll just take the editable one. This can be edited. So I'll share the editable one. Limitations of technology. Face to face, it would have been very easy. So for the ears, somebody can speak from what thing, what thing of Lord, what thing comes, depending on Sutra number 1. Somebody would just like to make a try.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, sound.
Sound.
From sound, ether comes.
Okay. I think you're talking about this table. We are talking about formula number 1. You have to apply this formula number 1, sutras.
Okay, Prabhu.
So from this sutra number 1.
Yeah. So sound is the tanmatra.
Okay.
And, ears, we use ears for hearing that. So
Okay,
that is the gross organ.
See, gross organ is not coming in picture here. You will see that only the element is coming, 5 gross elements. What is the gross element for in terms of hearing?
Sound.
Sound. Yes, sound.
Sky, Prabhu.
Yes, sky.
Sky.
Yes, perfect.
Ether.
So sense, ether, sky or ether, any of the things, both of them are right. So that comes. And what is the sense of subtle sense object literally?
Ear, Prabhu.
Ear.
Hearing.
No.
Grana. Yes, grana here. Yes.
See, for here.
Sorry, srota. Ears is srota. Yes.
Srota.
Grana means smelling. I'm sorry.
Yes. Srotra. So from srotra, now you can say. You are perfect. Now you are got it. So from srotra of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, what is going to come?
From Srota of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Devatas. Controlling deity is Devatas.
Just a minute. Earlier you were right, now you are going wrong. From subtle sense organ, what is going to come? Tanmatra and element. So what is the tanmatra of sound?
Sound.
Sound.
Sound, ether, yes. Sound, from sound.
Element is? Ether,
Sky.
yes.
Ether.
Ether or sky. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Very good. Now, what is the another gross element? Srotra was the subtle one. What is the gross one?
Ears, Prabhuji.
Ears.
No. Ears have two, gross and subtle. Earlier you talked about subtle. Now we are talking about gross.
Karna, Prabhu.
Karna, yes. Karna. Now, according to the sutra, from Karna of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, what is going to come? Sense Devata. Who is the sense Devata for hearing? Just now somebody had answered.
Devatas.
What is the subtle sense organ of Jiva? Again.
Subtle organ is hearing.
Srotra.
Srota.
Okay, now we'll fill the next one. From Karna of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, what is supposed to come? What is supposed to come? Apply this formula. From Karna of Lord's Karna, what is going to come? Just now all of you had answered rightly only.
Dig Devta.
Yeah, Dig Devatas are going to come. So sense Devatas here is Dig Devta. And what else is going to come? The subtle sense of sound. What is that? Srotra. Right? So you all have, at least to some degree, have answered nicely. So I'm happy with that. Now let us go to the verse again. Verse number 3. So just to give you confidence, then we'll go just move ahead. I think it is taking a lot of time. So we'll see same thing here. Karno disam cha tirthanam and srotra. So one is gross and another is subtle. From Karno, the subtle sense organ of Lord, comes the gross element. From the subtle element, Sutra of the Lord, comes Akas. Sorry, Sutra is the subtle one. From the subtle one comes the gross element Akas and Sabda, the Tanmatras. And from the gross element Karna of the Lord comes subtle, the Digdevatas and the Tirthana. So that is how this is also like fitting in the formula. That is how it comes. So this text number 3. And a little technical, but I think at least you must have got some idea now how it is coming out. This just to give you an idea, not to harass all of you, but good intellectual exercise. Now further these elements will be spoken in text number 4. Now we'll not write down in the table again. We'll just move ahead. Tad gatram vastu sarana saubhagascha bhajanam twag as sparsavayosya sarvamedhasya chavihi. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Translation by Student Graces Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Srila Prabhupada. His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is the generating center for all kinds of sense of touch and is the place for performing all kinds of sacrifice. Purport. The air.
No, we do not read the purport. I'll just read the. We just go to the technical explanation now. Now, same thing explained here. Like the skin, which is a gross sense organ, and the place of organ. From that comes Vayu Devata and the subtle sense of touch. Because Vayu Devata is the Devata of touch. Similarly, from the Twag Asparsa Vayusya, from the subtle one, subtle sense of touch, will come the gross element, that's air, and the gross element of touch, sparsa. So that is how these things are made, how it comes. So that is how these things also come from Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So this was there up to text number 4. Now text number 5 onwards, it's very, very easy. Text number 5 onwards, it's the further description of the Virat Rupa. Now we'll go to the text number 5. Romani udbhijya jatina yerva yagyastu samvritaha kes masru nakhaniyasya ila lohabra vidyutam. Please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores. Hare Krishna.
So from his hair arose all trees, udbhij jatinam. But which trees? Only those trees from which are used in the fire sacrifice. Like we know the auspicious trees are used in the fire sacrifices, not the inauspicious one. What are the auspicious trees which can be used for sacrifice?
Tulsi.
Tulsi, but we don't use so much in general. Sometimes we use Tulsi. Tulsi is transcendental actually. Yeah.
Mango.
Yeah, mango. Mango is used. Something else?
Sandalwood?
Yeah, sandalwood is used.
Coconut.
Coconut is also called auspicious. It comes in the category of Brahma.
Banana.
Banyan trees.
Banyan tree generally we don't use for sacrifice, but they are considered very auspicious. Banana is also considered very auspicious, although we don't use for sacrifice. But we use for yagyas. Yagyas means in the sense banyan tree, banyan leaf is used for decoration, and also it is used as a backdrop for the deities. So they all can be coming in this category. But certain trees which cannot be used, like the ones which grow in the marsh areas. So all those plants and trees we don't use. So they will not come in that category. So all the auspicious trees used for the sacrifice are considered the bodily hairs of the Lord. And beard arose from the clouds. The clouds are considered the Lord's beard. Earlier, in the first chapter, this was given, the Lord's hair is the clouds. So hair means their hair in the beard also. So in that sense, it's not wrong. Then the nails of the Lord Somebody knows what is the benefit of meditating on the nails?
Narasimhadev.
Okay, you're very spiritual, Narasimhadev. But there is some benefit for meditating on each and every limb of the Lord. So what happens when one meditates on the nails of the Lord?
Electricity.
What happens? Yeah. You were speaking something.
Electricity. You said electricity, Prabhu.
Electricity. I don't know. Electricity comes. There's something related to electricity, but not exactly. We don't get electricity from that, but we get some benefit.
Power.
Okay. Okay. Somebody can
iron power, Prabhu, it is written. Maybe we get more stronger.
Okay.
Energy, Prabhu.
Energy. Actually, we get enlightenment. Josnabir ahat mahad dranandakaram. So what happens is that as one meditates on the toenails of the Lord, one gets the wisdom of Upanishads. It's such a benefit. So one gets the wisdom of Upanishads just by meditating on the toenails of the Lord, because they are shining like moonlight. So that's why they're compared here to the Sila, Lobhabra, Vidyutam. That's why they're compared to lightning, like one of the devotees are telling lightning, or Vidyuta, basically means electricity. Now, because like Vidyut removes the darkness, similarly, by meditating on the Lord's toenails, one gets rid of the ignorance within the heart. That's why they're compared like that. Okay. Now we'll go to the next verse. Now we'll go a little quickly because already almost an hour has passed. Bahavo lokapala nam prayasa chema karmanam. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna. The Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass.
So Lokpalas are the protective ones, and the one most important ones who protects everyone is called Indra. Indra is considered the arm of the Lord. But even the Lokpalas are also called the protective ones. Lokpal means people who maintain. King is supposed to maintain the citizens. Similarly, Lokpalas are supposed to maintain the planets, different planets. So same karmanam, those who protect. For them, this particular verse is spoken. So these are the arms of the Lord, the arms of the Lord. And that is why by worshipping Lord Vishnu, one automatically gets the benefit of worshipping all the demigods. That's the benefit. Vrikkamo bhurбhuva swasya chemas saranasya cha sarvakama varsyapi hares charana aspadam. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna. Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear.
So from his footsteps, Vikramaha arose Bhur, Bhuva, and Swa. So Bhulok, we know about that is Bhuvarlok, then there is Swarglok. So they all arose from his footsteps when he was walking. 1, 2, 3, like that. And from that same feet comes auspiciousness. So by meditating on the Lord's lotus feet, we get the benefit. Protective items, saranasa, and one gets the fulfillment of all the desires. Just by meditating on the Lord, all one's desires are fulfilled. One gets rid of all the fear. Bhaja ore man, Sri Nandanandan, Abhay Charanarvinda. So by worshipping Nandanandan, Krishna's lotus feet, one gets freedom from all sort of fears. Then the next verse. Apam viryasya sargasya parjanyasya prajapatehe punsa sishna upastastu prajati ananda nirvitehe. Please read the translation.
Translation by Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Sorry, Mataji. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Hare Krishna.
So in this way, from the Lord's genitals arose water, semen, creation, showers. Prajapati is like Daksha. Even Brahma is also called a Prajapati. Prajapati means those who are meant to expand the population. And these are the presiding deities of generating organs. So they all arose. Like we were again going to the same table. We will not go to the same table and see. But if you remember the table, it is given about these are karmendriyas basically. So hands, legs, the sense of speaking, and the rectum and genitals. They are working senses. So from that also comes the presiding deities of these generating organs. That's Prajapatis. So they all arose from there. Now the next karmendriya is explained in the next verse. The rectum one. Payoryamasya mitrasya parimokshasya narada himsaya nirtir mrityur nirayasya godam smitaha. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc.
So Payu is the sense organ of evacuation, and Gudam is the place of evacuation. So the difference between Payu and Gudam. Parimoksha means evacuation. Nirti means poverty. So Mrityu is the presiding deity of evacuation, and Mitra is considered to be his assistant. So that's why at some places the Digdevata of the NS is given Mitra, somewhere it is given Yama. Yama means Mrityu. So Yama is the actual one, and Mitra just assists him. So that is how these two also come from the organs, the karmendriyas of Lord only. So for that also we are dependent on the Lord. Parabhutir adharmasya tamasaschapi paschimah naddo nad nadinam cha gotranam asti samati. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Abraham's translation. The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Hare Krishna.
Now many people say everything emanates from the Lord. Does adharma also come from the Lord? Yes. There's the back of the Lord. There's not the front portion of the Lord. So the back of the Lord is the place of all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. And the front portion are his veins, etc. So Paschimaha. And then this is the part of Virat Rupa where the mountains are considered to be the bones, or the center of his bones are the center of all the mountains. In his veins flow all the rivers and rivulets. You can understand. So that is how all these things also come from ultimately Garbhodasha Vishnu. Avyaktaras Sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udram viditam pumso hridayam manasa padam. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus, it is known by the intelligent class of men. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So, in this way, from his belly arose oceans, juice in food. So, our belly consumes the food, juice, but his belly is the cause of the juice. Pradhana, unmanifest Mahatattva, and destruction of living entities. And from his heart arose the mind of the man. Bhutanam nidhanasya. So in this way, all these things came from the Lord only. So that's the prime cause of discussion. So all the people's minds, they come from the heart of the Lord. So Lord is the ultimate cause. Dharmasmam tubhyam cha kumaranam bhavasya cha Vijnanasya cha sattvasya parasatma parayanam. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Translation. Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles. Mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanat Kumara, and Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So from the Antakaran of the Lord, all these things come. Now, Antakaran has 4 elements within it. Somebody knows all the 4 elements within the Antakaran? Heart. Antakaran means basically heart. So 4 elements, metal elements, reside in the heart. Region of heart. Okay. It's mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminant consciousness is called chitta. Man, buddhi, ahankar, and chitta. And because of chitta, the word which Prabhupada has used is consciousness, although it is metal element, not the spiritual one. So that's why Prabhupada has used the word consciousness. Although it is contaminant consciousness, which is called chitta, which is ultimately Mahatattva in mode of passion, which is sometimes called Sutra Tattva also. Or sometimes it's called Mahatattva in mode of goodness. So this chitta helps the living entity to identify with matter. It's more subtle than false ego also. So these 4 reside in the Antakaran. And from the heart of the Lord, from the Antakaran, that means all the Chatuskumaras, the great devotees of the Lord, they all reside within the heart of the Lord. That's basically what it means here. They all reside in the Antakaran of the Lord. And now Prabhupada is like summarizing all the things together. Aham bhavan bhavasyeva ta ime munayo agraja sura sura nara nagaha khaga mrigas sarispraha gandharvas sap sarso yaksha raksho bhute gano raga pasava pitara siddha vidya dharas charan druma अन्य चा विविधा जीवा जल स्थल न भौकसा ग्रह रक्ष केतवस्तारा तडिता स्तनित इतनवः सर्वं पुरुष ए वेदं भूतं भव्यं भवश्चयत् तेनेदम् आवृतं विश्वं वितस्तेन अधितिष्ठति. Now you can read all together.
Hare Krishna. Beginning from me, Brahma, down to you, and Bhava, Shiva, all the great sages who have born before you, the demigods, devans, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Bhutaganas, Bhugarvas, Pashus, Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and all other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, bees, trees, and everything that be are covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future. Although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not existing 9 inches. Very good.
Yeah. Basically, everything is emitting from the Lord. Purusam eva deyam sarvam. So this is like this from Purusukta. Brahmano asmukama sita. Purus evedam sarvam. So Purus evedam sarvam is Lord is everything is explained in these verses. That means Brahma, who's Lord within the material world, he is also coming from the Lord only, or he is a part of the Lord. Tishtati, he exists. Similarly, what is spoken in the last verses, the word that how he see just the last line. He extends the universe by 10 fingers. Devanant avritam vishtam vitastim aditistati. So which is equivalent to the word in the Purusukta, which is Sa bhumim sarvata spritva attatasti dasangulam. Dasangulam is 10 fingers. So Lord is 10 fingers taller than the universe, which means basically it's not like a literal thing. What it means is Lord is even greater than the universe. Lord is not bound by the universe, rather the entire universe is within the Lord. So that's basically explained here. And now Prabhupada has written it as 9 inches. So it's not literally 9 inches. Nobody takes a scale and says, oh, Virat Rupa is taller 9 inches more than the universe. It's not like that. But basically it means is the Lord is not bound by the universe, rather the universe is within the realm of the Lord. So that is how Prabhupada talks about Achintya Bheda Tattva. How ultimately Lord is different, everything is different at the same time, same with the Lord. So ultimately everything has come from the energy of the Lord. So it's considered the Lord only. That's the Lord says, I'm this, I'm that, and everything. And in the last verse of this prayer sequence, or this particular section. Swadisnyam pratapan prano bahischa pratapati yaso evam virajam pratapams tapati antar bahi puman. Please read.
Hare Krishna. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. Hare Krishna.
So in this way, Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the one who sustains the Virat Rupa, which basically means is the subtle form of universe, or Virat. So both from inside and outside, Lord is maintaining everything. Now, like Pranavayu, from outside as well as inside maintains us. When we breathe in, we are maintained. Similarly, things outside also, which we may consume, drink, see, are also maintained by Pranavayu. So unless until we breathe Pranavayu, we cannot live. Unless until Pranavayu exists outside us, we cannot live. Similarly, unless until Lord maintains us from outside and from inside, or the universe is maintained from outside and inside by the Lord, we cannot be maintained. So Lord maintains us through Gyan Shakti, knowledge giving Shakti, Kriya Shakti, acting potency, Drav Shakti, the ingredient potency. So by all these types of potencies, Lord maintains us from both inside and from outside. Now we'll come to the next topic, which will be more interesting to you after this extremely technical one. The difference between the spiritual world and the material world. Let's start from text number 18. And at the end, we'll see the table. Then it will become very clear. So we'll move a little fast from 18th to the text number 22, and then we'll just see the table. So amartasya bhayasyeso martyam annam yat attagat mahimasya tato brahman purusasya dvartayah. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Shrimati, continue.
Sorry, Mataji. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of immortality and fearlessness, and he is transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narada, O Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person.
It's control of immorality and fearlessness. It's transcendent to death. These are the qualities of the Lord. And because who dies? One who is born. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityu, dhruva janma mritasya. So one who is born dies, but because Lord is never born, he never dies. So he is not just the controller of mortal beings in this material world, he is also the controller of immortality in the spiritual world. Somebody remembers from Bhagavad Gita, there's something similar is spoken in a particular portion of Bhagavad Gita. How is Lord of controller of both the material and the spiritual worlds? Somebody remembers?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Is it Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matta Sarvam Pravartate?
Okay, so that's there. All the vibhutis. At one more place, Lord speaks like that. Very famous Three Shloki Shastra. Somebody would like to attempt? Somebody remember the Purushottam Yoga? That's how Lord's activity at transcendental. There's something, somebody remembers about Purushottam Yoga? So the Lord says that how he is above both Chara and Akshara, the conditioned soul as well as the liberated soul. So there also Lord speaks like that in the Purushottam Yoga section.
Janma karma chamediya.
See, there he is speaking that he is transcendental, his activity is transcendental, but I am saying that how he is controller of both the material world and the spiritual world is given in the Purushottam Yoga. That above matter are the fallen living entities, above fallen living entities are the liberated ones, but Lord says, I am superior to both of them. I control both of them. I control matter, I control the conditioned living entities as well as I control the liberated living entities. There also Lord speaks like that. That's why it's very difficult to measure the glories of the Lord. Because even the Vaikuntha planets come from the Lord only, not just the material world.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Is it Dvavimao Purusho Loke Sharastashara?
Yes.
Yes. Same verse.
Tasmanda
Shara.
Shara and Akshara. So do the same verse. I will refer to this verse. Padesu sarva bhutani pumsa sthiti pado viduhu amritam shemam abhayam tri mudhno adhyayi murdasu. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivinoda Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be known as the supreme reservoir of all material appearances by the 1/4 of his energy in which all the living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exist in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems and beyond the material coverings. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
So this is 1/4. That's called Ek Pad Vibhuti. Or Sthiti Padaha. Padesu. It's 1/4. And the spiritual world is the 3 Pad Vibhuti, 3/4 of the creation. So 1/4 of the creation of the Lord is the where the living entities exist with mental opulence. But the place of deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from anxiety of old age and disease lies in the spiritual world, where it is 3/4 of the creation, 3 Pad Vibhuti. This is beyond the Bhu Bhuvaswa, which is beyond the material universe. We'll see them in totality in after 2-3 more verses. Padastrayo Bahishyasan Prajanam Ya Asrama Antastri Lokyastri Aparo Grah Medo Abhrit Vritaha. Please read the translation.
The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows must live within the 3 material worlds. Hare Krishna.
So when we say no celibacy vow, etc., it's basically meaning sense gratification. So till one is attached to sense gratification, one doesn't enter in the spiritual world. So there's a difference. Siti vichakra mein viswan sasananasane ubhe yad avidya cha purusas tu bhayasrayah. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. By his energies and all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both nuisance and factual knowledge of all situations.
He controls all sort of activities, in the activities of devotional service, and he is master of both Vidya and Avidya. Okay, now I don't know whether we should go too much in that detail. Vidya arises from which mode? Okay, Avidya arises from which mode?
Ignorance.
Yeah, ignorance.
What about passion?
Tamogun.
What about passion?
Ego.
Knowledge, Prabhu?
No, mind.
Knowledge came from passion.
Mind is from passion.
Okay. From passion also comes avidya. So avidya comes from mode of passion and ignorance. And vidya comes from which mode?
Goodness.
And knowledge of bhakti comes from which mode?
Sattva-guna.
No, it's come from Suddha Sattva.
Shuddha Sattva.
Above 3 gunas.
Above three
Shuddha
gunas.
Sattva.
That's why it's not called, it's beyond Vidya Avidya, it's called Paravidya. Knowledge of Bhakti is Paravidya. It's beyond Vidya and Avidya of this. Okay, Vandana Mataji had some question or she wanted to comment?
No, Prabhuji, I just wanted to, I'm not able to understand this. Like here in this translation, it says that he's the ultimate master of both nations and factual knowledge. Knowledge, it's fine, but how to understand that Lord is the master of nations? Ignorance.
See, even ignorance, who has put us in ignorance?
Yeah,
The
Maya Devi. And Maya Devi is created by Lord. So
yes,
equally Lord.
So ultimately, we wanted to be in ignorance to enjoy this world, and Lord has facilitated that via agency of Mayadevi. But ultimately, Lord has facilitated through Mayadevi, so that's how Lord is the master of Avidya also. Okay. Yasmat andam virat jagge bhutendriya gunatmakah tad dravyam atyagat vishwam gobhi surya ivatapan. Please read.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all material elements, qualities, and sense are generated. Yet he is aloof from such material manifestations like the sun, which is separate from its rays and heat. Hare Krishna.
From that person level, all the universal globes, universal form, the Virat Rupa here, with all its material elements, qualities, senses, they are all generated from the Supreme Lord only. Yet he is aloof. Like sun, it may sun rays may touch stool and urine. So what happens to stool and urine when they are touched by the sun rays?
They get purified.
Dried and evaporated.
Yeah. So they get purified. And what happens to the sun?
It remains the same.
Remains the same. He remains pure. So Prabhupada writes it in Isopanishad. Somebody remember the two words which Prabhupada uses? Suddham and Apapa Vidyam. What are the words which Prabhupada uses from his medical dictionary?
Antiseptic and prophylactic.
Yeah, yes. You still remember our Bhakti Shastri course. So prophylactic and antiseptic, these two properties. Sun purifies everything, itself doesn't get contaminated. So similarly, from Lord comes all material elements, but he himself remains transcendental. So although he is the Upadan Karan of this world, as well as the Nimit Karan, but at the same time he remains transcendental. Now what we'll do is this ceremony. Stop the set. Now we'll see it in a table form, whatever we have read. Just a minute. I have to open it. So difference between Ekpad Vibhuti and Tripad Vibhuti. Just to read the difference. This from again from your books both. Ekpad Vibhuti means material world, Tripad Vibhuti means the spiritual world. So cycle of birth and death is present in the Ekpad Vibhuti, but not there in the Tripad Vibhuti, in the spiritual world. People who stay in this material world are generally Grahmedhis and Abhridvratas. Means those who don't control their mind and senses, who don't follow the power of celebration. And those who stay in Tripad Vibhuti are Aprajanam. They have no birth. They are not born in this world again. But they don't want to enjoy sense gratification. Inclination towards Lord, Ekpad Vibhuti they are not inclined, in Tripad Vibhuti they are inclined. Then nature of the soul. In the material world, people want to lord it over material nature. In the spiritual world, they perform devotional service. Fear is present in this world, absent in the spiritual world. People are forgetful in this world, so there is avidya. And spiritual certainly it is paravidya, but here avidya would mean transcendental knowledge. They have transcendental knowledge. Souls in this material world are less in number. In spiritual, they are innumerable. The knowledge potency is 1/4 in this world, 3/4 in the spiritual world, or the existence. Sandhini basically means existence. So existence of this material world is very small, versus in spiritual world it is huge, 3/4. Experience of Satchidananda is extremely meager here, because we are covered by mode of passion and ignorance. In the spiritual world, there is complete experience of Satchidananda. So there is a difference between the Ekpad Vibhuti and Tripadvibhuti. Now Brahmaji substantiates that by his realization which he got in one of the days from text number 23. So we'll just see the experience of Brahmaji from 23 to 30. So I'll not go to the Sanskrit verses now. You can just read the translation. So please read the translation.
Hare Krishna. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead.
Which bodily limb of the great personality of Garbhodaksa Vishnu is he talking about?
Navel.
From navel. It's not a navel. From something comes from the navel. What's that? Yeah.
Lotus.
The stem.
Yeah. Both the stem and the flower lotus. So he is seeing that even this lotus and the stem has come from the Lord only. So he saw that ultimately everything is Lord only. So what to do? So he took the ingredients from that lotus for a particular purpose, which is given in this verse. Please read what is given here.
Hare Krishna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. For performing sacrificial ceremonies, one requires sacrificial ingredients such as flowers, leaves, and straw, along with sacrificial altar and a suitable time spring.
So one needs all these things. What he did?
Shall I read, Prabhu?
Please. Yes.
Other requirements are utensils, grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, and Samaveda, and 4 priests to perform the sacrifice.
So he got all these things from the body of the Lord only, from the lotus and the stem of the lotus. Next one.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes.
So there are different scriptures. So there are 4 Vedas: Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharveda. Similarly, there are 4 types of priests who are expert in each one of them: Brahma, Hota, Advaryu, and Udgata. They are expert in different things. So he got all of them for performance of the sacrifice. So what he did? Please read 27.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Translation. Thus I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal body parts of the personality of Godhead. By invocation of the demigods' names, the ultimate goal Vishnu was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete. Hare Krishna.
So he says, ultimately, I took all the ingredients as I have mentioned till now from personal bodily parts of personality of Godhead. That means ultimately I worship Lord from his own body parts. This shows that there is nothing different from Lord Vishnu in the entire creation. So this was realization of Brahma. Like sometimes we take Ganga water and we offer it to Ganga. So Prabhupada says, if you take some water from Ganga, Ganga's water level doesn't reduce. If you offer the water back to Ganga, Ganga's water level doesn't increase. But the worshipper gets the benefit. Similarly, whatever services we render to the Lord, who is beneficiary? We are the beneficiary. But if we get the vision that everything is non-different from the Lord, then we will never be caught up in it. So we get the benefit. Brahmaji had this vision. Yes, Mandana Mataji, you had a question.
Yeah, Prabhuji, here it says by invocation of the demigods' names. So why was he invocating demigods? Like he should be worshipping directly the Vishnu. Like
So that's the procedure of yagyas in which demigods were invoked. But who are these demigods?
yeah, they come from Lord. Yeah.
Yes, they are various bodily limbs of the Lord, bodily parts of the Lord, which is mentioned in the previous verse. And why it is gradually spoken here? Because the process of karma kanda, which talks about the worship of the demigods, gradually elevates the consciousness of the person, which you must have read in Yoga Ladder and your Bhakti Safi classes. So it happens gradually further. Okay, does it answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
I will move further. Now this, okay, further. And then what he did, Brahmaji did, please read.
Thus, I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifices out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord.
I use the bodily parts of the Lord, perform sacrifice from them, and in this way I satisfied the Supreme Lord. So the literal meaning of many times in Hindi they have this song, Tera tujhko arpan kya lage mera. Ultimately, I am giving you your own thing. Nothing belongs to me. So literally, that's truth. Everything belongs to the Lord. Anupama Radharani Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. In the previous verse, demigods are mentioned. But this was Lord Brahma is just speaking about how he worshipped right in the beginning of creation. Because we read in the Bhagavatam that, through the progenitors, like through Aditi, all the demigods appeared. So, but this is much before that. This is in the beginning of creation. So how are demigods mentioned here?
Yeah, so even in the beginning of creation, if you see, because in chapter number 5, you had mentioned about demigods appearing somewhere between verse number 21 and 35. Somewhere between 21 and 35, the appearance of demigods. When Ahankar, mode of goodness, further expands, or Ahankar comes in contact with the mode of goodness, then Karta, Gyan Sakti, Adideva, mind, and 10 sense Devatas come. These 10 sense Devatas are called elemental Devatas.
Verse 30.
Verse 30.
Was.
Yeah. Okay, so verse number 30. So in verse number 30, we see these elemental Devatas come in picture. So these elemental Devatas are the demigods of entire elements. Then there are demigods who stay with Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So these elemental Devatas stay with Karnodaksha Vishnu. Then there are demigods, another set of demigods who stay with Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Then there are demigods whose keep on changing 14 times in one day of Brahma, which are basically post. These demigods, there's 3 sets. Like we have home ministry in India, we have a home ministry in central government. We also have a home ministry in the state government. Similarly, there's different sets of demigods at different points. Okay, does that answer your question, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yes. So we'll just move ahead now. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Jai Srila Prabhupada. My dear son, therefore your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities.
So manifest personality means those who are born till now, and non-manifest personalities means personalities who are not born till now, with a non-manifest. They're still in concept, they're going to be born. So in this way, so your Prajapatis, Manus, etc., who are not born till now, because creation has not taken place. So you, in this way, they were also satisfied.
Prabhuji, in the purport, it also Prabhupada mentions that the Lord himself is the non-manifested personality.
So Lord is also there, and at the same time, the people who are going to further create, they're also there. Both of them are there.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Because although Garbhodaksha Vishnu is so huge, despite that Brahmaji is not able to see him, he'll see him in the next chapter. So he's also unmanifest. Please read next.
Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
So in this way, they also perform sacrifice, but there is a difference between both of them. What the difference? They were not able to see. Ultimately, we have collected ingredients from the Supreme Lord. This Brahma was able to see. That's why they were caught up in Maya, whereas Brahmaji was free from Maya. Because Brahmaji could see that everything is ultimately coming from the Supreme Lord. So one who can see that everything is coming from the Supreme Lord never falls in the under Maya. Okay. Now we'll go to the next one. This is like something which needs a bit of discussion. So this verse is the answer to the question which was asked by Narada Muni in the previous chapter, verse number 2. Yad adhishthanam. So this, what is the basis basically? Yad adhishthanam, 2.5.2, just see. Which means what is the center of this universe? So what is the center of the universe is spoken here. Narayane Bhagavati tat idam viswamahitam grihita mayuru guna sarga dav aguna sota. Please use the translation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes.
So this shows that Narayan is the shelter. Yat adhishthanam. All the material manifestations of the universe are therefore situated in his powerful material energies. Whose energies? Lord Narayan's energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the modes. He has no affinity for the modes, despite that his metal energies sustain the entire universe. So he is the shelter. He is a shelter. So that's the answer of Brahma. And then Yat Param was the next question. That was in 2.5.15. He asked this question. What it depends on? What this material world depends on? Sudami tanni yuktoham haro harati tadvasaha viswam purusha rupena paripati trisakti dhrik. Please read the translation.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. By his will, I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form, as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies.
So that is how
Yat Param.
everything depends on Lord Vishnu only, Lord Narayan only. So that is how he answers that question here. Three Sakti Devata. So all three, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, ultimately they depend on Lord only. And then he says, this will be a translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. My dear son, whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and the spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Prabhu.
So in this way, everything, either cause or effect, is dependent on the Supreme Lord. So we understand cause. This whole world is made of cause and pair effect. Because at the movement in my vocal cord, there is a cause. Effect is there are words from the mouth. Then words from the mouth become the cause, and what comes out of your speaker is the effect. What comes out of your speaker is the effect. Then effect turns into cause, and what enters in your ears becomes the effect. Then what enters in your ears becomes the cause, and what you understand becomes an effect. Entire world is made up of these pairs of cause and effect. But which is the ultimate cause? It is Lord Vishnu himself, or Lord Krishna himself. Sarva Karana Karana. Everything comes from him. What is the ultimate effect? Ultimate effect is also Lord Vishnu. That is Virat Rupa. The entire creation is made up of that. So in this way, everything, either cause or effect, in the spiritual world or the material world, is ultimately dependent on the Supreme Lord only. So entire world, all the pairs of cause and effect. Now this is like very famous verse. You can even repeat after this verse. One of my favorite verses. So you can keep your mic muted, but you can repeat. Na bharati me angamrsopalakshate.
न भारती मे अङ्गमृषोपलक्ष्यते
न वै क्वचिन्मे मनसो मृषागतिः
न वै क्वचिन्मे मनसो मृषा गतिः
न मे ऋषिकाणि पतन्ति असत्पथे
न मे हृषिकानि पतन्त्यसत्पथे
जन्मे हेतोत्कण्ठयवता धृतो हरिः
जन्मे हृदौ कण्ठ्यावता धृतो हरिः. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
It's a beautiful verse. What remembering? Just read the translation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So what he begins to say is, whatever I am saying, don't doubt it. It cannot be wrong. Na bharati me ange mrisopalakshati. Whatever I speak cannot be wrong. It cannot be untruth. Na ve kachan me manaso mrisagati. Whatever determination I have taken, or whatever I have thought, it cannot be wrong. It has to be proved to be right. Na me risikani patanti asatpate. Simply my senses are never, they never go towards the direction of sense gratification or asatpate, temporary matter. Somebody says, oh my God, he's so proud. No, he's not proud. He says, why it happens? Yan me hedo kantiyarta dito harihi. Because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Lord within the heart with great eagerness. That is what he is saying is, if you also catch the lotus feet of the Lord in your heart with great eagerness, whatever you do, think, or speak cannot go wrong. So that is how one can have great pride on the shelter of which we are taking. That's the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's not the pride of Brahma on himself. That's the pride of Brahma on the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. At the same time, this gives confidence to Narada that whatever Brahmaji has spoken cannot be wrong. So Prabhupada also quote this. Maam cha vicharina bhakti yogena sevte sa gunan samte tedan brahma bhuya kalte. If we constantly take shelter of the bhakti, then brahma bhuya kalpate. So we'll just take 2-3 more verses till 38. Soham samamanya mastapomayah prajapati navivanditapatihi asthaya yogam nipunam samahitas tamnad gacham yat atma sambhavah. Please read the translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Although I am known as a great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and am an expert in the mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So he says, whatever I speak never goes wrong, whatever I think never fails, my senses don't become deteriorated. Even in such a perfection, I can't understand the Lord fully. This shows his humility. That even in perfect state, one cannot understand the Lord completely. How much one can understand? As much Lord wants to explain himself. That much one can understand the Lord. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives a simple, very powerful example. That if son wants to know about the activities of the father before he was born, only father explains, one can understand. Like once my uncle's son, he was going through the sacred marriage album of his father. Especially in those days, people would keep the marriage albums very secret. Because once in a lifetime, you get to opportunity to become a king and a queen. So he was scrolling through all the marriage albums, photos, very, very carefully. And at the end of it, he started crying. Father said, I got married and you're crying. You should be happy that I got married. The son said, no, you had such a big marriage. You called everyone and I'm your son, you didn't call me. That's totally unfair. And father was trying to explain. And he was saying, I wanted to sit on your horse. I wanted to attend the marriage. You never called me, I'm your own son. And the father was trying to explain, but son was not able to understand. So similarly, unless until father explains about his activities before the marriage, son cannot understand. Similarly, living entities can understand the Lord as much as Lord wants to reveal out himself to the living entities. That's all. So that's why even in the perfect stage, one cannot fully understand the Lord. So we'll just read the translation of 3 more verses. They're in line. Please read the translation.
Therefore, it is surrender feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So, what can others do when the Lord Himself is unable to estimate His own limits?
Yeah. So, Lord's expansion as Lord Ananta is constantly glorifying his pastimes from his unlimited hoods since unlimited time, but still he is not able to estimate. So even Lord cannot understand how much he is glorious. He tries to understand because he is omniscient, but as soon as he tries to understand, his glories expand. Again he tries to understand, again the glories expand. Again he tries to understand, again it expands. In this way, Lord remains omniscient, at the same time he can't understand. Then what to say of others? Please read the next one.
Hare Krishna. Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I can ascertain the limits of spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusion, eternal energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability. Hare Krishna.
Even none of us can understand the spiritual happiness and what to serve the lower demigods. Because each one of us are bewildered by illusory energy. And sometimes Brahmaji becomes bewildered in Brahma Leela, Shiva also becomes bewildered in which Leela? Where does Shiva become
Mohini.
Mohini. And for Varnasura Sangram. During Varnasura Sangram also he becomes bewildered.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Now this last verse of today. This is the translation.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So he can hardly be known as he is. Still, we want to glorify him and pay him obeisances. That is for our own purification, although we can never understand the Lord completely. So, the rest of the verses of this chapter and the next chapter we'll take in the next class. This was a bit technical one, so it took a little more time. So we'll meet day after tomorrow on Thursday. So till then we'll end here. Tantras, Hari Hari. Tantras Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Jai Gautam Dev.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much. When it is already late in India, you took out your time to teach us all. Thank you once again. So, Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari. Thank you for giving me opportunity to again dwell into Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna. I also thank God.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Meet on Thursday at same time at 7. So with all your permission, can I end the session?
Yes, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.